run smoothly, a bit like a Windows operating system. Nonetheless, my neighbor is making tremendous progress day by day at a pace unmatched by any calculator. Every mistake, every imprecision is an incentive for him to try it differently next time and maybe even to get a little bit better. His brain is anything but perfect, and it never will be. Over time, it will, of course, improve at adapting to its environment, but it will never be immaculate and absolute because it will always retain its ability to err. Only someone who builds mistakes into their actions will be able at some point to develop something innovative and new. Whoever attempts to always think as correctly as possible, by contrast, puts themselves on level with a computer, efficient, precise, and speedy, but also uncreative, boring, and predictable. As adults, we develop an even more obvious form of intellectual drivel. We forget names and faces. We allow ourselves to become easily distracted by WhatsApp messages or lose our plan for the day in the flood of distracting morning emails. We have names on the tip of our tongues that don't ever fully come to us. We misjudge the time as poorly as we do probabilities or numbers. We struggle to choose from among several options. We go blank right before we are supposed to speak in front of an audience. We find it hard to quiet our minds after an exhausting day at work and are the worst at retaining information and learning under pressure. On the other hand, there is no organ or system, let alone a computer, that is able to solve complicated problems as playfully as we can. 35 times 27 equals... ? That's tough without a calculator. But are you able to recognize the latest Taylor Swift song? No big deal, right? Though the previous math problem is relatively simple, we can barely solve it in our heads, and yet we can immediately recognize a song, the face of a loved one, or their voice. And we can do this even though it technically takes much more effort to recognize a certain singer on the stage. It seems as though our brain is particularly bad at carrying out those tasks that are particularly in demand in our current technical and digital world. We want optimization and precision, perfection. But our brain? It does exactly the opposite, eluding this goal. A lot of people imagine how wonderful it might be if the brain functioned like a mistake-free computer, how concentrated, quick, and efficient we would be at solving problems. And it's true. Computers don't make mistakes, and if they do, they crash. But brains don't crash, unless there is outside help, but that's another story. This is because the brain works in a completely different way. It is our errors and our inaccuracies in thinking that, in fact, make us superior to computers. All of the horror stories predicting that computers will soon seize the world, leaving us behind in their intellectual shadow, are clearly rejected by biology. In fact, biology seems to contradict the trend of digitalization, that buzzword of our modern times that seems to want school classes networked like businesses, data exchanged and efficiently analyzed. Classrooms of the future, analyzing big data, deep learning. There's no area of our lives that we don't wish to optimize with the computational power of the machine. The grand ideas of the future, however, will not come from digital, but rather from analog thinking, from brains, not smartphones. Computers might learn things, but we understand them. Computers follow the rules. We can change them. Computers might be able to beat us at chess or Go, but this is neither surprising, creative, nor a cause for concern. I would, however, start to get worried if a computer began making mistakes and then signaled, "Chess? No, I don't really want to, actually. That's boring. What I'm really in the mood for is a round of World of Warcraft." Until that happens, the human brain will remain the measure of all things, precisely because it supposedly functions so poorly. In this book, I would like to explain to you what goes on behind the scenes of the probably most erroneous thinking structure in the world, the brain. To describe the way in which the brain uses errors in order to orientate itself in the best possible way to its social situation, to think of new ideas, and to generate knowledge. Yes, it makes mistakes in the process, but the paradox is this. It is through our faults and lack of concentration that our most powerful thoughts are generated. Most of our supposed intellectual disadvantages have enormous advantages.